Welcome to the top of the morning show. It's your girl TT from the D. Did y'all survive Hump Day Wednesday? It really was Hump Day. I have to tell you, I had a great day, and it was my third day and my last day of juicing with my juice detox. My goodness. I felt like, I don't know if I can make it to the finish line, and I was tempted, but I committed to myself that I would carry out that juice detox, and I do feel less heavy, if we could say. I do feel encouraged and motivated to just put better things in my body, right? So, we are breaking down the 5 love languages this week. This is day 4, and we are on love language number 4, because there are 5 love languages. Monday, we covered words of affirmation. Tuesday, we covered quality time. Yesterday, Wednesday, we covered receiving gifts. And today, we are going to cover the 4th love language, acts of service, right from the book Dr. Gary Chapman put out there, The 5 Love Languages, How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate. Here we go. Before we leave, Jim and Janice, let's re-examine Jim's answer to my question. Do you feel loved by Janice? Oh, I've always felt loved by her, Dr. Chapman. She is the best housekeeper in the world. She's an excellent cook. She keeps my clothes washed and ironed. She is wonderful about doing things with the children. I know she loves me. Jim's primary love language was what I call acts of service. By acts of service, I mean doing things you know your spouse would like you to do. You seek to please her by serving her, to express your love for her by doing things for her. Such actions as cooking a meal, setting a table, washing dishes, vacuuming, cleaning a commode, toilet for those of you who don't want to know what a commode is, getting hair out of the sink, removing the white spots from the mirror, getting bugs off the windshield, taking out the garbage, changing the baby's diaper if you have a baby, right? Painting a room that she may have asked you, dusting the bookcase, keeping the car in operating condition, washing or vacuuming the car, cleaning the garage, mowing the grass, trimming the shrubs, raking the leaves, shoveling the snow, right? If you got fish, changing the water in the fish bowl. They require thought, planning, time, effort, and definitely energy. If done with a positive spirit, they are indeed expressions of love. Jesus Christ gave a simple but profound illustration of expressing love by an act of service when he washed the feet of his disciples. In a culture where people wore sandals and walked on dirt streets, it was customary for the servant of the household to wash the feet of guests as they arrived. Jesus, who had instructed his disciples to love one another, gave them an example of how they expressed that love when he took a basin and a towel and proceeded to wash their feet. After that simple expression of love, he encouraged his disciples to follow his example. You see, earlier in his life, Jesus had indicated that in his kingdom, those who would be great would be servants. In most societies, those who are great lord it over those who are small. But Jesus Christ said that those who are great world would serve others. The Apostle Paul summarized that philosophy when he said, "Serve one another in love." So I discovered the impact of acts of service in the little village of China Grove, North Carolina. China Grove sits in central North Carolina, originally nestled in Chinaberry trees, not far from Andy Griffith's legendary Mayberry, and an hour and a half from Mount Pilot. At the time of this story, China Grove was a textile town with a population of about 1,500. I had been away for more than 10 years studying anthropology, psychology, and theology. I was making my semi-annual visit to keep in touch with my roots. Almost everyone I knew except Dr. Shin and Dr. Smith worked in the mill. Dr. Shin was the medical doctor and Dr. Smith was the dentist. And of course, there was Preacher Blackburn, who was pastor of the church. And for most couples in China Grove, life centered on work and church. The conversation at the mill focused on the superintendent's latest decision and how it affected their jobs in particular. The services at church focus mainly on the anticipated joys of heaven. In that pristine American setting, I discovered love language number 4. I was standing under a chinaberry tree after church on Sunday when Mark and Mary approached me. I didn't recognize either of them. I assumed they had grown up while I was away. Introducing himself, Mark said, "I understand you have been studying counseling." I smiled and I said, "Well, a little bit." "I have a question," he said. "Can a couple make it in marriage if they disagree on everything?" It was one of those theoretical questions that I knew I had a personal root. I brushed aside the theoretical nature of his question and asked him a personal question. "How long have you been married?" 2 years, he replied, "and we don't agree on anything." "Give me some examples," I continued. "Well, for one, Mary doesn't like me to go hunting. I work all week in the mill and I like to go hunting on Saturdays. Not every Saturday, but when hunting season is in." Mary had been silent until this point when she interjected. "When hunting season is out, he goes fishing. And besides that, he doesn't hunt just on Saturdays. He takes off from work to go hunting. Once or twice a year I take off, 2 or 3 days from work to go hunting in the mountains with some buddies. I don't think there's anything wrong with that." "What else do you disagree on?" I asked. "Well, she wants to go to church all the time. I don't mind going on Sunday morning, but Sunday night, I like to rest. It's all right if she wants to go, but I don't think I ought to have to go." Again, Mary spoke up. "You don't really want me to go either," she said. "You fuss every time I walk out the door." I knew that things weren't supposed to be getting this hot under a shady tree in front of church. As a young, aspiring counselor, I feared that I was getting in over my head. But having been trained to ask questions and listen, I continued. "What other things do you disagree on?" This time Mary answered. "He wants me to stay home all day and work in the house," she said. "He gets mad if I go see my mother or go shopping or something." "I don't mind her going to see her mother," he said. "But when I come home, I like to see the house cleaned up. Some weeks, she doesn't make the bed up for 3 or 4 days. And half the time, she hasn't even started supper. I work hard, and I like to eat when I get home. Besides that, the house is a wreck," he continued. "The baby's things are all over the floor. The baby is dirty, and I don't like filth. She seems to be happy to live in a pig pen. We don't have much, but we live in a small mill house. At least you could keep it clean." "What's wrong with him helping me around the house?" Mary asked. "He acts like a husband shouldn't do anything around the house. All he wants to do is work and hunt. He expects me to do everything. He even expects me to wash the car." Thinking that I had better start looking for solutions rather than prying from my disagreements, I looked at Mark and I asked, "Mark, when you were dating, before you got married, did you go hunting every Saturday?" "Well, most Saturdays," he said, "but I always got home in time to go see her on Saturday night. Most of the time, I get home in time to wash my truck before I went to see her. I didn't like to go see her with my dirty truck." "Mary, how old were you when you got married?" I asked. "I was 18, she said. "We got married right after I finished high school. Mark graduated a year before me, and he was working." "During your senior year in high school, how often did Mark come to see you?" I inquired. "He came almost every night," she said. "In fact, he came in the afternoon and would often stay and have supper with my family. He would help me do my chores around the house, and then we'd sit and talk until supper time." "Mark, what did the two of you do after supper?" I asked. Mark looked up with a sheepish smile and said, "Well, the regular dating stuff, you know. But if I had a school project," Mary said, "he'd help me with it. Sometimes we work hours on school projects. I was in charge of the Christmas float for the senior class. He helped me for 3 weeks every afternoon. He was great." I switched gears and focused on the third area of their disagreement. "Mark, when you were dating, did you go to church with Mary on Sunday nights?" "Yes, I did," he said. If I didn't go to church with her, I couldn't see her that night. Her father was strict that way. He never complained about it, Mary said. In fact, he seemed to enjoy it. He even helped us with the Christmas program. After we finished the Christmas float project, we started working on a set for the Christmas program at the church, and we spent about 2 weeks working together on that. He is really talented when it comes to painting and building sets. I thought I was becoming to see some light, but I wasn't sure if Mark and Mary were seeing it. I turned to Mary and I asked, when you were dating Mark, what convinced you that he really loved you? What made him different from the other guys you had dated? It was the way he helped me with everything, she said. He was so eager to help me. None of the other guys ever expressed any interest in those things, but it seemed natural for Mark. He even helped me wash dishes when he had supper at our house. He was the most wonderful person I had ever met. But after we got married, that changed. He didn't help me at all. Turning to Mark, I asked, why do you think you did all those things for her and with her before you married? It just seemed natural for me, he said. It's what I would want someone to do for me if she cared about me. And why do you think you stopped helping her after you got married, I asked. Well, I guess I expected it to be like my family. You see, Dad worked and Mom took care of the things in the house. I never saw my dad vacuum the floor or wash the dishes or do anything around the house. Since Mom didn't work outside the house, she kept everything spotless, did all the cooking, washing, and ironing. And I guess I thought that was the way it was supposed to be, hoping that Mark was seeing what I was seeing. I asked, Mark, a moment ago, what did you hear Mary say when I asked her what really made her feel loved by you when you were dating? He responded, helping her with things and doing things with her. Here's a pearl, ladies and gentlemen. Requests give direction to love, but demands stop the flow of love. So you can understand, I continue, how she could feel unloved when you stop helping with things. His head was bobbing up and down. I continued, it was a normal thing for you to follow the model of your mother and father in marriage. Almost all of us tend to do that, but your behavior towards Mary was a radical change from your courtship. The one thing that had assured her of your love disappeared. Then I turned to Mary and I asked, what did you hear Mark say when I asked, why did you do all those things to help Mary when we were dating? He said that it came naturally to him, he replied. That's right, I said. And also, she said, he wanted to do things for me. He was doing those things for you and with you because of his mind and the way he could show his love for you. And once you married and living in your own house, he had expectations of what you would do if you loved him. You would keep the house clean, you would cook, and so on. In brief, you would do some things for him to express your love. When he did not see you doing those things, you do understand why he feels unloved. Mary's head was bobbing now. I continued. My guess is that the reason you are both so unhappy in your marriage is that neither of you is showing love by doing the things for one another. Mary said, I think you're right. And the reason I stopped doing things for him is because I resented his demanding spirit. It was as if he was trying to make me be like his mother. You're right, I said. And no one likes to be forced to do anything. In fact, love is always freely given. Love cannot be demanded. We can request things of each other, but we must never demand anything. Requests give direction to love, but demands are what stops the flow of love. I have to say, Mark broke in and said, she's right, Dr. Chapman. I was demanding and critical of her because I was disappointed in her as a wife. I know she said some cruel things, and I understand how she could be very upset with me. I think things can be turned around rather easily at this juncture, I said. I pulled 2 note cards out of my pocket. Let me try something. I want each of you to sit on the steps of the church and make a request list. Mark, I want you to list 3 or 4 things that Mary chose to do when you felt loved when you walked in the house in the afternoon. If making the bed is important to you, then put it down. Mary, I want you to make a list of 3 or 4 things that you would really like to have Mark help in doing things. If he chose to do them, that would help you know that he loved you. After 5 to 6 minutes, they handed me their list. Mark's list looked like this. make up the bed every day, have the baby's face washed when I get home, put her shoes in the closet before I get home, try to have supper at least started before I get home so that we could eat within 30 to 45 minutes after I get home. I read the list out loud and said to Mark, I'm understanding you say that if Mary chooses to do those 4 things, you will view those as act of love towards you. That's right, he said. If she did those 4 things, it would go a long way in changing my attitude towards her. Then I read Mary's list and it went like this. I wish he would wash the car every week instead of expecting me to do it. I wish he would change the baby's diaper after he gets home in the afternoon, especially if I'm working on supper. I wish he would vacuum the house for me once a week. I wish he would mow the grass every week in the summer and not let it get so tall when I'm ashamed of our yard. I said, Mary, I'm understanding to you, this is what you choose for Mark to do. And this would show actions that he would show love towards you. That's right, she said. It would be wonderful if he would do those things for me. Does this list seem reasonable to you, Mark? Is it feasible for you to do those things? Yes, he said. Mary, do the things on Mark's list seem reasonable and feasible to you? Could you do those things for him too? Yes, she said. I could do those things. In the past, I felt overwhelmed because no matter what I did, it was never enough. Mark, I said, you understand what I'm suggesting is a change from the model of marriage that your mother and father had. Oh, he said, my father mowed the grass and washed the car, but he didn't change the diaper or vacuum the floor, right? Right, he said. You don't have to do this. Understand. But if you do this, however, it will show an act of love to Mary. And here's another pearl. What we do for each other before marriage is no indication of what will happen in our marriage. So remember that, ladies and gentlemen. And let me give you these tidbits, little tad bits Dr. Chapman likes to give us towards the end. There are 10 of them. Number 1, make a list of all the requests your spouse has made for you over the past week. Select one of those each week and do it as an expression of love. And how these go is you want to try to implement this, okay? Number 2, cut out some heart-shaped note cards and print the following. Today, I showed my love for you by, and fill it out. What was it that you did? Give your spouse a love note accompanied by the act of service every 3 to 4 months. Number 3, ask your spouse to make a list of 10 things he or she would like to do during the next month. Then, ask your spouse to prioritize those numbering them 1 through 10. These sound familiar to y'all? Number 4, while your spouse is away getting the children, if you have children, ready, will show that act of service, right? Number 5, what is one service that your spouse nagged about consistently, right? Take care of it. Number 6, if your spouse requests for acts of service comes across as nags, put downs, try writing them in words that would be less offensive to them. For example, honey, I love you so much. You are a hardworking man and I really appreciate you. Right? Number 7, do some major acts of service like, washing the car, filling up the gas tank, cooking a meal. I'm pretty sure your spouse would appreciate it. Number 8, if you have more money than time, then hire somebody to do the things that you don't have time to do. Everybody would appreciate that, man or woman. Number 9, ask your spouse to tell you the daily acts of service that really would speak language to them, showing that you really care and love them, and vice versa. Switch gears. And number 10, periodically ask your spouse, if I could do one thing, one special act of service this week, what would it be? Don't only listen because you're asking the question just to get it over with. Listen to react by doing the action, carrying it out. For some of you, that will be simple. It's not going to be a problem. And then for others, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. But what's that saying? Anything worth having is worth making a sacrifice for, right? So if you love your spouse and you know that they are worth it, then take care of them. Well, that's all I have for you this Thursday morning. It's a thankful Thursday morning. I hope you'll tune in for the last love language tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Yesterday, we was running behind. I was running on fumes. So you got that show 2 hours late. Well, almost 2 hours late. So I do apologize for that. For those of you that check it out at 6 a.m., I hope that you'll stick in there with us and tune in tomorrow morning for the last love language, number 5, the physical touch. I'll see you soon.